So I used to like the web series Red vs. Blue produced by Rooster Teeth, but then I fell off it after some quality drops and Rooster Teeth being shitty, and now it's gonna end very soon with the restoration finale film. So today, I'll be revisiting the first 10 seasons of RVB and giving some thoughts on them. This won't be as structured as my normal analysis videos, I just really want to revisit the show and barf my thoughts out there, cause it's kinda hard to formally write about something that was special to you even for a short amount of time. I now present my thoughts on Red vs. Blue's Golden Age, though to make it clear I also like the Chorus trilogy that comes after this Golden Age, but that's a different writer so I don't feel like including it in this video, but I will cover it one day. Let's just move on. So, I realized I didn't explain what a Red vs. Blue is in the intro, so let me fix that right now. So Red vs. Blue is a series entirely made in the Halo game engine through a method labeled machinima. The creators started making the show by manipulating the player characters through controller movements to tell their own story and jokes, starting in this one location labeled Blood Gulch Avenue, thus the name of this arc being the Blood Gulch Chronicles. This arc uses Halo 1 and later Halo 2 for source material, but you don't need to have played the game to have fun with the show. The loosely thin story follows the antics of the Red and Blue team, a bunch of buffoons in Blood Gulch who get into all sorts of mischief and hijinks. Both teams are filled out with some quirky but endearing characters, with the Red team being the most stable of the two, but when your leader's the macho Lieutenant Sarge, that might be a bit of a stretch to call the group stable. The other members, like the slacker Griff and the smarmy smartass Simmons, also have really good banter, even from the first scene of the series. Donut is also here, unfortunately being the subject of the more poorly aged jokes in the show, with the whole pink isn't a manly color quips they often pull with him. The Spanish robot Lopez is chill though, loved his musical number in season 2 about the Blues tank. While the Red team is cool, I'm personally in favor of the dysfunctional Blue team, featuring the guy sick of everyone's shit Church, the juvenile Tucker, and the greatest character of all, the whimsical Caboose. The first two seasons, while a bit jankier compared to the later seasons, are still pretty funny to this day and had much more plot building than I realized. I mean, halfway through the first season, Church dies and becomes a ghost, and that becomes an important part of the lore for the rest of the show. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of wacky cartoon nonsense in these early seasons, which is entertaining, but doesn't make for the most compelling thematic content to chew on. I mean, throughout these first 100 episodes, there's evil AIs taking over the characters, supposed time travel, Tucker gets MPreg, just a whole bunch of crazy stuff that's more meant to make you laugh than make you think. That's fine though, because early RVB did that well. Season 3 is my personal favorite of the bunch next to Season 2, because of the few neat concept episodes they do, like Sergeant Caboose ending up in a Halo multiplayer game, plus the time travel plot. However, Seasons 4 and 5, aka the seasons where they primarily use Halo 2 for footage, aren't the best. They're still funny, but by the end you can really feel the steam for this arc of the show running out. I mean, they do the sitcom thing of introducing a new character who's a sibling of one of the main characters in the form of Griff's sister, so you can tell the show really needed a shake-up if they were to continue past episode 100. The Recollection Trilogy, aka Season 6, 7, and 8 of Red vs. Blue, uses Halo 3 for source material and is where the show got more story-focused and less cartoony, as seen with the decision to make the Civil War the Reds and Blues have been fighting a simulation. This story arc introduces Agent Washington, who recruits our beloved Reds and Blues due to their experience with the freelancers and AI because he needs to hunt down the AI-hungry former freelancer Meta. The Red vs. Blue lore gets way more in-depth here, even revealing that Church is not a ghost but the Epsilon AI. Depending on who you ask, this decision was either for the better or worse, but I personally think it's for the best, since this gives the cast memorable character moments outside of the jokes, allowing for a deeper attachment to them, which is kinda needed if you're gonna make the show more story-focused from here on out. For example, by the end of the arc, Sarge has a crisis of faith where he realizes that all he's been fighting for in Blood Gulch was a lie, but uses the opportunity to stand up and become a leader through an inspiring speech. He's more than just a funny, hot-headed sergeant now, he's a sergeant who is still a bit hot-headed, but was willing to change and adapt to the situations to step up and save the day. Change is a common and major theme within this arc of the story, as we see the characters not only be fleshed out outside of their comedic aspects, but get into constantly shifting status quo, and in the case of the insane AI plot with Church and his on-again off-again partner Tex, become new versions of themselves. By the way, Tex gets some of the best fighting moments in the entire series in this arc. There's a reason the upload of just her fighting against the Reds and Tucker has so many views on YouTube. There's There's still some decent jokes in these seasons, but this is the point where Red vs. Blue becomes the show I recognize as when I think about it in my mind. A dramatic soap opera featuring some goofy underdog characters rising up to the occasion. The tone shift is a bit jarring at first, I'll admit, but by the end of the arc, they managed to pull off some really good drama, especially thanks to the late Monty Oum joining the team to provide fantastic fight animation, fully breaking Red vs. Blue free of the machinima limitations it previously had. I love these fights, not just because they have Oum's influences and style, but because they retain the comedic characteristics of the Red vs. Blue characters in the fight, so it still feels natural and true to who the cast is, despite the shift in animation stylings. Season 8 is definitely the strongest of the trilogy with a new animation style and the more clear footing on serious storytelling, though Season 6 and 7 aren't too shabby either. The ending to this arc also marks the first of like 3 proper endings this show could have had, with the epic snow battle against the Meta and Church/Epsilon being trapped in the AI capture unit looking for Tex and reliving the glory days of Blood Gulch. If the show were to end here, I'd be satisfied, though this isn't the best ending Red vs. Blue could have had in my opinion. But for now, the Recollection trilogy is pretty good. To conclude the ongoing story, we have the Freelancer Saga, aka Seasons 9 and 10 of Red vs. Blue, the final 2 seasons written by Bernie Burns before the finale movie came in. Tying into Halo Reach being a prequel to the original trilogy of Halo games, this saga features flashbacks to the rise and eventual fall of the Freelancers that Washington, Tex, and New Carolina were a part of. These sequences were completely animated and have some pretty cool fights thanks to Monty Oum, along with giving us interesting insights into these characters, like a more kind-hearted Washington than the more bitter take we saw in the Recollection trilogy. Season 9 cuts between these flashbacks and Epsilon dicking around in his own Blood Gulch recreation, basically splitting the drama and comedy of the series into 2 sections, which I'm a bit mixed on compared to how the last few seasons blended the 2. Though, to give a positive, a lot of the flashback fights in these arcs include some cheesy vocal metal songs that I just love to listen to both in and out of the show. I'm just a huge sucker for that kind of music. By Season 9's end, Epsilon gets rescued by Sarge, Caboose, and a modern-day Carolina who was out to kill the director of Project Freelancer for all his freak experiments and crimes, leading into Season 10, which is much better about the 2 storylines thing than Season 9 was, since we're progressing the plot of the modern day instead of being stuck in an AI capture unit. Season 10 really shows how far the show had come in writing compelling conflicts, though a downside is there aren't as many memorable jokes in this arc as the previous ones, but I can excuse that when the show still has good jokes and is complemented by some great character writing. I'd say this is a good ending for the story arc RVB had been building up for the last 10 seasons, but as an ending for the main cast of characters, it could have been better, especially since it's more focused on Epsilon and Carolina than the other boys, though you can argue they got their big hero moment in Season 8. And that's the first 10 seasons of Red vs. Blue, and I'd recommend them if you're interested. They have their obvious rough spots, but the passion, wit, and eventually heart shine through to provide a series that showed why Rooster Teeth was respected for a time, even if that time has long since fallen off. This rewatch did remind me why I used to love this show. It has funny characters, the ways they worked with and eventually surpassed the limitations of their available software was awesome, the willingness to grow and later have honest emotions with its audience who initially came to see the funny Halo parody men do funny things is a ballsy move, but it ultimately paid off. Despite what the show or the company became later on, I'm glad to have experienced the golden age of Red vs. Blue.